That's what we normally try.
Ryan, Troy,
I'm telling you, man, he's not even listening. There's like 3 freshers.
you're all moving around.
No. He might, I don't know. See, I seen the hospital thing.
Nearing.
I saw that. I didn't even know. I was like,
You're probably going to have to remind me that a few
snap
times.
occasionally.
Hey,
He's like, what? The occasional snap it.
Lawrence.
I wasn't. I was just there.
Maximiliano. Max, oh good, thank you. Joelle, Mason.
When you go back in town, you want to go to Jiggle?
Okay. So we do have an online section for distance students this semester. So I will be running Collaborate, and that means that anything clever, any links or things that I have in the PowerPoints don't work once it's in Collaborate. All right, so you have to bear with me there. There might be a couple of times where I'm jumping in and out to a real live PowerPoint material. I think Samantha's not here, right? No, she's in, no, not.
Oh, okay.
No, I got the other one, I think she's in Albuquerque. Okay. All right. So, my plan then is to go over the syllabus today, and that means I have to come out of Collaborate. So, the distant students, there will be a YouTube video for you to watch, but I'll be talking through. You can follow if you've got a copy of the syllabus in front of you. So, there, and over here. Actually, let's go here first.
Who has his name?
Everybody comfortable with using Blackboard? We've got any new people. Okay, so when you go into Blackboard, you're going to see a link for the class and a link for the lab. Okay, so make sure that when you're emailing me to ask questions or anything that you use the right link to the right class. Okay. Okay. So, when you go in, you're going to see something like this. Over here on the left, we have a link for the email so that you can contact me or you can contact each other. If you want to put a study group together or borrow notes if you were sick or anything like that, you can contact each other as well as me here. All right? I have a discussion board there. I'm not sure if we're going to use it. It will depend how things go with the distance students. All right? Class notes link is here, so all your PowerPoints and things are up here. There's the link for the lecture meetings, so if you are going to watch the Collaborate or the YouTube archive, that's where that will be. And then assignments, all right? So all your information is over here on the left, except for your syllabus, which is on the home page, okay? If you are in the online section and not on campus, you'll need a proctor for your exams. You can let me know which way you want to do that. You can come and take the exam in class, or you can find a proctor over at the library or at student services, whatever works with your timetable, okay? Read the general guidelines. Okay, before you do your participant agreement, make sure that you read the guidelines and you read, I'm going to skim through the syllabus, make sure you read it thoroughly so you know what's expected. All right? Alright, so my contact details are up here. For those of you that might not have found out last semester, my office is now not in Greyhound Arena. It's over in the FCS building, which is opposite JWLA. Alright, I will be in the room that used to be the lounge as well. So when I put up an office hour schedule, I'll say whether I'm going to be in the FCS building or in Greyhound Arena during that time, so that you can find me. All right? Because last semester people were having trouble tracking me down because we were back and forth all over the place. All right? My office hours are here. If they don't work, don't worry about it. Just email me, make an appointment. I can meet you another time. Right? Sometimes my office hours are during, if you're an athlete, you've got training or video, or you've got another class, or some of you have jobs after class, and so those times might not work. Right? So just drop me an email and we can make an appointment. Okay? All right, prereq for this class. Has everybody got HPE 241 and or Biology 108 or Biology 210? No, that's a prereq.
No.
But we said that, because you're doing biology, well, you were going to do Biology 108. Okay. Well, you're just going to have to study extra hard on the AMP, my friend. Sorry about that. Okay, anybody else? Because we do have a bit of a problem with them cancelling Bio 108 this semester. No? Okay, all right. You're in 241 there, right? Wait. Put you
Yeah.
into structural kinese?
No, I already took that.
Oh, you took that. That'll do it. That should have given you enough at least. I think that will help. Biology would be better, but that will do it, hopefully. All right, so you'll need the textbook. Textbook is this one. This morning we had some problems with the motor behavior textbook because when the shipment arrived, there were a load of second-hand copies, and the bookstore now I won't have a second-hand copy on the shelf. So hopefully that didn't also happen with this book, so that you can go and get it. The reason I don't like the second-hand ones is this book has a great study setup on the website. So it really aids your study routine. It's got extra quizzes, it's got flashcards, it's got all kinds of things to help you out, all right? So if you buy a used copy, it is likely that your key code will be used, in which case you've either got to be very good friends with someone in class who has a key code, or pay for a key code. So it doesn't end up really saving you any money by buying a second-hand copy. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I went to the bookstore this morning, and there are new ones on Amazon for like $60.
Okay.
It's like half the price.
Oh, do that. Don't go to the bookstore. Here's the only thing with the bookstore is if you're short of cash and you are waiting on your FAFSA, so your financial aid, you can go to the bookstore and student accounts will allow you to have a book and put it on tab. That's the benefit of the bookstore. Obviously, you can't do that with Amazon. However, if Amazon are selling it for half the price and you can get it with a 2-day delivery, I would do that and stuff the bookstore, to be because they're meant to be here to help you and support you, not so, I would do that. Okay, all right. Let me know if you're having problems with the book. Okay. There is one copy in the library, I think, but that's it. So. K through 12 people. K through 12. Okay, so the New Mexico competencies are for the K through 12. These are the competencies that link this class to your exam, your teacher exam. All right? If you're not on the K through 12, if you're not on the teacher ed degree plan, you can ignore that. Okay? All right. So, your job. I don't give a grade for being in class. Okay? You paid for it. Most people who pay for something want to get their money's worth, and that means coming to class. Okay? So, this is not brain surgery, but it is an English 101. This material is quite complicated. So if you don't come to class, I believe you'll struggle. All right? I will come to class. Come and have the opportunity to ask questions, hear my explanation of something. Then if I'm not making sense, you can go, I'll say it again, come up with a different way of approaching it because I still don't understand. Right? If you have an excused absence, so your cousin's niece's boyfriend's grandmother died and you have to go and support her because she's emotionally distraught, go, right? That's fine. If you got doctors, dentists, vets, these are all fine, as long as you let me know ahead of time. Don't come to class after the event and go, oh, I had to go to the dentist. You knew you were going to the dentist, email me ahead of time and then I will go over the work with you. If it's unexcused, I'm not spending my time going over the work. Okay, so. Complete the reading assignments. We will come back to that idea in a minute. Ask questions, all right? And that might be where we will use the discussion board, because I know that some of you find it difficult to speak up in class. You shouldn't, right? If you're struggling with something, there's at least one other person in class that isn't understanding it, probably the majority of the class, right? The best thing to do is go, stop, say it again and go way more slowly this time, right? If you can't, then that might be a good time for us to think about using the discussion board. You could put a general question up on discussion board and I can answer it there and everyone can see it. All right? So we'll see how that plays out. Don't sit mute and be lost. The thing about this material, how many of you took 212 already? How many of you did the sequence the right way round?
What is 212?
Right? So, in 212, the material starts off very easy and it gets a little bit trickier as we go along. In 313, we start off with the really tricky stuff and it gets easier as we go along, right? And the reason for that is that I feel you need to have the foundation, so you need to know how a muscle contracts in order to understand how a muscle adapts to strength training, right? So I can't teach you the adaptation and the strength training before I teach you how the muscle contracts. So we start off very chemistry, biology, real tiny stuff we can't see, very abstract, right? And then it gets easier because then we get more and more and more applied as we move through the semester. Okay? So you can't afford to not get something at the beginning because it will come back and bite you later on because it feeds into something we're going to learn later on. Okay? Try not to use cell phones, please. Don't have them out unless you have an e-book. If you have an e-book, probably let me know, otherwise I'll be slapping you for having your phone out and then I'll look like an idiot, right? Don't sit at the back doing this, assuming that I can't see your thumbs moving. I'm a movement person. If your muscles are contracting in your shoulders or your elbows, I know you're moving your fingers, right? So let's just not be doing that because then you're going to miss something important. Okay? If you're in the 1WW section, so the online section, as I said, you need a proctor to take your exams. So you've got a couple of weeks to sort out proctor, send me the information. I will send exams to your proctor, you'll sit the exam, they'll scan it back to you. Okay? I don't do the exam online, so that's not an option. Because that's actually not beneficial for you guys. You need to have the paper and have time and not be rushing to do things against the clock on an online exam. Okay, so the reading assignment idea. So you'll notice here that we have pre-chapter quizzes. All right? Pre-chapter quizzes are my attempt to make you read your textbook before you come to class. Or at least open it, look at it, right? Go, oh, look, there's a heart. I guess we're doing something on the heart today, right? Just so that you're not coming into class going, I don't know this, I don't know what we're going to do, right? So we want to foster a good learning experience, okay? So the pre-chapter quiz will open at the day before. I think it's at 5 o'clock. I think it's at 5 o'clock. The day before I start that chapter in class. So you've got to keep an eye on your schedule and your syllabus. All right? It closes at 1:30 before class. So those of you who are in both classes with me, the timings on these pre-chapter quizzes are completely different because that's a 200 level class. So I give them a little bit more time to mess up. Right? So the pre-chapter quizzes are 3 questions, 3 minutes, 2 attempts. Okay? Each quiz has an announcement attached to it, so when it opens, if you are checking your Blackboard, there will be an announcement to remind you that there's a pre-chapter quiz. If you're not checking Blackboard, that's not a smart plan, right? Okay? I do this because, as much as we hope that you are full-time students and you love learning, it's like the thing you wake up for every day, this obviously is not quite an accurate picture of what goes on in our lives. And so I know that you've got 9 other faculty members going, read the book, read the book, read the book, right? And there's only so many hours in a day. To do the pre-chapter quiz, you can mostly, not always, but mostly get away with a skim of the main highlights or the descriptions on a figure or something like that, right? To do the pre-chapter quiz, as much as I'd love for you to sit and read the chapter thoroughly, you don't need that, right? So, you'll have looked at the pre-chapter quiz and done a skim or more of the chapter, depending upon your workload and your time allowance. Right? Come to class, listen to me, being crazy up here, and then, if you're sensible, you'll take half an hour, either that day or the following day, to review your chapter, even again if it's just the highlights. Don't wait until you're studying for the exam to review the chapter. It's too long a gap, right? In order for that memory to move from short-term into long-term, it needs practice. Okay? 5 exams in here. They're not cumulative. Each one, just like 212, for those of you that have done 212, each exam stands alone. All right? Exam number 5 is in finals week, but it isn't a cumulative exam. It's just the stuff from exam number 4. Okay? We're going to do a physical activity portfolio, which I'll talk to you about in a minute. And you're going to write an exercise plan using the FIT prescription. Right? So there's a lot of points on the exams, unfortunately, but I have to know whether you know the material, or at least have looked at the material. But I try to spread some points out for people who are not great at sitting exams. Right? There are other ways to make some good points to help you with the class. Okay. Any questions on that? I've done this. I have changed my grading policy after last semester, so there'll be a due date. I'll accept work for 1 week after the due date for 50%. After a week, I'm not accepting anything unless there was a valid, agreed upon reason. Okay? So if you need to extend the deadline, you need to talk to me. All right? I'm happy to do that, but I'm not doing it because you didn't bother to do your homework. Okay? If anybody, I've had several notes about accommodations. If there's anybody else, please make sure that you go and see the Office of Disability and get them to email me so that I can help out. Academic integrity makes perfect sense. Don't cheat. It's silly. It's a waste of your money. All right? You can read it. All right? So, schedule. So on Wednesday, we're going to start chapter 12, which means what happens tomorrow? Chapter quiz. Good. All right. Okay. So this usually goes relatively smoothly. I hit a little blip because apparently in the fall they give us 61 class meetings, and in the spring we only get 60. So I have a class, our last review before your last exam is hanging there with no date on it at the moment because I ran out of classes. So what I think I'm going to do, I have the first part of chapter 4, chapter 5, chapter 6, and chapter 7 actually, is really a review of A&P. They go over the structure of the heart, the structure of the lungs, right? And I usually skim that quite quickly in class because you've all got that, okay? So my current thinking is that I did not want to give you, I didn't want to give you an exam and then tell you how to manage the first part of chapter 4 on your own. And I didn't want to give you an exam and tell you to do the first part of chapter 6 on your own. So what I'm thinking is that I have a PowerPoint with narration for the first part of chapter 5 that I might say, do that over the President's Day weekend and the Tuesday, and we will pick up on the second part of the notes for chapter 5 on Wednesday. That's probably going to be my resolution now, because I know for a fact I can't do nutrition in 2 lessons. I talk too much, it never happens. So, final exam is on Monday of finals week at 12:30. Right. And then the only other thing, I am supposed to be going to a conference here in April. I'm not sure whether I'm going to video a lecture for you. Haven't decided yet, but that's ways off. So I was thinking I wouldn't go, and then I'm like, oh, it's in Tampa. So I probably will go. All right, I think that's it on the syllabus. If when you read through it carefully, if you've got any questions, just check in with me before you do the participation agreement, all right? Okay, then we want... So,
Can you make it a little bigger?
I can,
Sorry.
yes, sorry. No, that wasn't what I wanted to do.
Sorry.
It's not your fault. I'm
Can you
just,
actually do it?
I'm just not very good with gadgets. Are you coming back on? Come on.
Please don't drop my grade.
Uh-oh. It didn't turn off, because it would beep if it turned off.
She's just gonna like zoom on my Christmas video.
Dead. With the lights on.
You know, we had some, we got one day. No, I think it's fine.
It's email. It's like, yeah,
There we go.
it's a little night, so we be a little night.
We're doing that?
Yeah, I think it.
Oh, this is on the call. Is it on the signal?
You know what? It's a run in this class.
Yeah.
You have to run.
I never even touched that one.
God, he was telling me, I was like, great. Well, that's what she fucking does for a living. Like, how much do you have to run for like lab? Or like, I think it's like a sprint. But I was like, wait, what do you think I want to run? I barely want to run from my school. Yeah. My coach keeps saying, you're paying me. Exactly.
instead of 8 hours.
Wow.
From here,
There we go.
so we go to Dallas.
Still a bit small.
So, good things, no? Yeah, so we go.
All right, so physical activity log. I have a couple of purposes for the physical activity log. The first one is it's an opportunity for you to apply information you're learning in class to something you are doing yourself. Right? And that's always a good way to try to make things make sense. Another one is that if you're an athlete, most of you are going to be an anaerobic athlete, right? So we do a lot of weight training, we do a lot of sprints, we do a lot of drill work, but we don't do a lot of aerobic work, right? A little bit if your coaches are doing their jobs properly, because all games last a long time, right? But not a lot. And when you give up being an athlete, or when you leave college if you're not an athlete, it becomes increasingly difficult to make time to exercise. And the research shows that aerobic exercise has a tremendous health benefit for your longevity and your long-term health and wellness forever, right? So what I want to do, I was an anaerobic athlete in college. I did no aerobic work if I could possibly avoid it, because I hated it. And then when you leave, now you've got to create this whole new habit that you've never had before. So I want to kind of sow the seed a little bit of an aerobic habit for you. The third reason is that many of you are going to write programs for other people, right? Whether they're your athletes, or whether you become a personal trainer, or whether you become an athletic trainer, you're going to be giving people exercise plans, right? And so you need to understand that those exercise plans should have a heavy dose of aerobic work within them if it's going to be a comprehensive health or fitness plan. Does that make sense? Okay? So those three things kind of underlie the reason for the project being set up the way it is. I use the Department of Health and Human Services, but the ACSM and the Center for Disease Control and the American Heart Association all have a set of guidelines that are basically the same. The numbers are the same, but sometimes they fiddle around with which exercises they count where. All right? So the basic guideline for health is that we do either 150 minutes of moderate aerobic activity a week, or 75 minutes of vigorous aerobic activity. So this is aside from stretching, lifting, sprinting, right? 75 minutes of vigorous aerobic activity, or you can do some combination thereof to meet the guideline. And this is the guideline for minimum health benefits. The more I do, the bigger the health benefit up to a point, right? When we look at the research and the data, there are very, very few people in the typical population who meet this guideline. Very few. Most adults in the States report doing less than 10 minutes of anything moving at any one go at any time. Right? So it's really difficult for these people to meet these guidelines. And substantial health benefits. significant difference in your health outcomes with this amount of work a week. Okay. Now, this is only the aerobic portion of the guidelines. The guidelines also have guidelines for resistance work and for flexibility. So it's not that they're saying you shouldn't be doing the other stuff. It's just that this is the minimum aerobic component you should have. Okay? So, for some of you, that's quite a difficult idea to think about, because you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and you're in the gym with LV at 5:15 and he has you there until 6:30, and then you have to gobble down some breakfast, and then you have to get to class, and then you're in class all morning, then you have to eat lunch, then you're in class, then you're training, and then if you're really lucky you get to eat dinner before you fall over on your face in bed, right? So the idea of going, oh, now she wants me to run or walk or ride my bike as well, right? But I want you to think about, how can I incorporate aerobic activity? It doesn't have to be exercise, all right? The word is not exercise, it's activity. So if you go to the web link, you will see things like hoovering, vacuuming your house, right? Raking leaves, not that we get to rake many leaves around here, but you know, walking the dog, playing frisbee with your cousin, right? Walking around Walmart. Drive, if you're going to drive to school, maybe don't drive to school, walk to school. Or drive to school, park your car out here and spend the rest of the day walking backwards and forwards across the bridge. How can I, given my crazy life, how can I fit in a little bit of aerobics? Right? So that's the task. For others of you, if you already run on a regular basis or ride your bike to school or something like that, it'll be quite easy to meet that. You might want to set yourself a different goal, right? So I'm going to do 200 minutes, or I'm going to add something that's more vigorous, because I'm pretty sure most of what I do would count as moderate. Okay? So you're going to start logging your activity. Now, if you want to log everything you do, because it's a pain in the neck to have to keep 2 separate logs, that's fine. But when you total your weekly minutes for your aerobic work, don't add in your anaerobic work. Okay? We're going to do this over the semester. What day is it? Monday? So let's say, we don't usually start on Monday. Let's say you're going to start it on Saturday. All right, so Saturday will be your first log day. So that will give you a couple of days to look at the guidelines and think about, am I going to write it like a diary? Am I going to keep it on a calendar? How am I going to... I don't mind, as long as I can see what you're doing. How you present it is up to you. Okay? So that's the kind of global idea of it. Down here there are some specifics of things that you're going to need to be thinking about. All right? So when we get to the point where you're actually handing in a binder, okay, then there should be an introduction. All right. Assume that you are not giving this to me. Right? This is the Idiot's Guide to my physical activity for the semester. Okay? Because you need to start to think about, how do I present a piece of work to someone else? If my boss asks me to create a plan, do I just write the plan and shove it at him? Or am I going to introduce my ideas? Or, okay? So you've got to start thinking about the presentation, thinking about how do I create a comprehensive piece of work that I could give to someone that isn't in my field necessarily. So we want an introduction. You're going to come up with some goals. All right? Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, timely. Okay? So, if you are relatively sure you never do 150 minutes of aerobic work, that could be your goal. It doesn't have to be, but it could be, right? Or you could say, I want to be able to run a mile in 8 minutes by the end of the semester. Or you could say, I want to lose 5 pounds of fat by the end of the semester. Because losing fat is an aerobic goal. If you want to put on muscle mass, now you've got to be a little bit careful, because putting on muscle mass is not an aerobic goal, it's an anaerobic goal. Right? So you've got to think about things like that. We'll come back to this idea of a valid physiological measure of intensity, because I haven't taught you that yet, so it's going to be using heart rate, but there's several different options that you've got there. Okay? And then later in the semester, we're going to start thinking about how can I take what I'm doing in class and apply it to my physical activity that I'm logging. So that you've got some theoretical content within your physical activity log. Okay. This is another opportunity to show me what you have learned outside of the exams. So if you think, oh God, exam, right now you've got something else where you can say, look, I really did understand that idea. And then at the end, you're going to do a reflection. Okay? So, the distance students, I would prefer you didn't, but I will accept an electronic copy of your log for midterm. The final log has to be mailed in and get here by the deadline. If you're going to miss the deadline, let me know. It doesn't have to be a great big 3-ring binder. It can be a little paper, but as long as the papers are attached with a prong, or it does, or you can get it ring bound if you want to spend the money on that. But it doesn't have to be something that's going to weigh a ton and cost a load of money to mail in. All right. But I need a paper copy for the final. So, dates that it's due, the midterm binder is due on the 4th of March. The final binder is due on the 1st of May. Okay? We had a crazy number of meetings last week. I think I have everything set up for this class on Blackboard. If you're looking for something and you can't find it, don't assume that you're making a mistake. Assume that I made the mistake, because that's much more likely. Because I think I've done something and I didn't, or I didn't click the right box, and so I can see it, but you can't see it, that stuff. Okay? Anything else that we need to know today? Okay. All right, so I'll see you Wednesday. Lab for this class is Thursday morning, just once a week. Okay. Thank you. Have a nice